Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Angeline Wanjeri. If you're new to this channel, hello, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your post notifications so that you can get notified anytime I drop a video like I am about to do right here, right now, today for all of you guys. Welcome back to today's episode of My Take, and today I'm going to start you off with 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. Let's talk temptation. Yesterday, I met a friend for lunch. And on my way back home, I was in a cab ride with this guy called Ivan. Very cool guy, very funny guy, very interesting guy. It was quite an enjoyable ride back home. The only thing, traffic. So while we were stuck in traffic, this guy asked me, "Can I ask you a question?" So in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope it's not a stupid question. So I just say, go ahead. And he's like, "You're sure you're not going to get offended?" And then I'm like, "I will not get offended." He's like, "You're sure?" So I started even questioning myself in my mind. Okay, I hope he's not going to ask me if I'm single, if I'm dating, if he can take me out for coffee. You know, I already started imagining the worst. I was like, please do not ruin what has been a good ride so far. So I was just like, just ask me. And then he goes, "Do you think marriage is a scam?" So I started laughing. That was my instant reaction. I started laughing. I'm like, what has made you ask me that question? Have you had a bad experience? Did something happen to you? What would make you ask me that? Then he's like, "Can I tell you a story?" I'm like, "Tell me a story." "You're sure?" I'm like, "Yo, just tell me. Tell me the story." Then he's like, "Okay, sour." So he opens up and he tells me about a few days ago how he picked up this guy and his 3 kids. The man and his 3 kids piled at the back of his taxi. No sooner had the trip begun, this man at the back started crying. He started crying. So Ivan, the taxi guy, was like, he started battling in his mind. Do I ask him what's wrong? Ama nilenge too? How do I respond to this? Because even he could see the children were worried and concerned. They were young. So they were looking at their dad like, what's wrong? What's happening? So Ivan took it upon himself and decided to ask the man, "Are you okay? What is happening? What is going on?" And I'm telling you, this guy just opened up like a waterfall. You know how sometimes somebody can ask you what is wrong? No, unafungua tu roho. Unafungua tu roho. It's like you were just waiting for somebody to ask you, "Are you okay?" So this guy opens up and shares his life story. So he tells Ivan how he had been married for 13 years to the love of his life. 13 years. This man was very wealthy, worked at an NGO. Him and his wife and his children, they had built a beautiful life for themselves. So his work at the NGO meant that sometimes he traveled for long periods of time, 2 weeks, sometimes a month. You're posted here, you're posted there, So during some of his trips back home, like when he would get back home, one of the neighbors would tell him, "We saw your wife with another man. We actually thought it was you." So the guy would be like, "Aye," and never thought anything of it, because at the back of his mind, he was like, there's no way my wife would be cheating on me. So he travels, comes back again, and the same neighbor, "By the way, we've been seeing your wife with a certain man. Anytime you're not here, this man comes to the house." Again, the husband did not want to believe it. He thought the neighbors were just being nosy and they were being malicious. He never asked the wife anything about it. He didn't bother investigating. He was just like, "Apana, there is no way." That is how much this man loved and trusted his wife. So one time he was posted, I don't know where, for like 2-3 weeks. But as fate would have it, or luck would have it, the job he was to do, ishad mapema. So he was like, "I'll just make it home and surprise my wife and kids." So he didn't even call the wife to say, "Hey, my trip has been cut short. I will be back sooner than expected." He was like, "Let me just surprise them." So he heads back to Nairobi, to his home. And he got home like at around 9 p.m. He checks into the house. The kids are in the living room watching TV with the nanny, and he finds out the wife is not home at around 9 p.m. So he asks the house manager, wapi mama watoto? Ametoka lakini atarudi. Ametoka kidogo lakini atarudi. So he didn't even call his wife ati to find out where are you, I am home or whatever. Me, I don't know I don't know whether it was fate or what this was. Him not calling the wife saying, hey, I'm home, where are you, or ABCD. I think subconsciously he wanted to find out if what the neighbors had been saying had any truth to it. So he gets the children to bed, he releases the house manager, and he chills at the sitting room watching TV, waiting for his wife, to the point where he blacks out, he falls asleep, and he wakes up at the next day in the morning. That is when the wife was checking into the house. The next day in the morning at around 6:37 there, and she checked in with her lover. She checked in with the man she had been seeing, completely unaware that her husband was in the house, that her husband had returned home. So the husband saw the wife coming in at the wee hours of the morning with this man, and he told her, first of all, he chased away this man. And then he told the wife, I really want to beat you. I really want to hit you. In fact, I want to kill you, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, go freshen up, get ready, and we go to hospital and get tested. I want to make sure I am okay. That's the first thing he told his wife. So they prepared and drove to the hospital. They were tested for all STDs, full blood test. They waited for hours. Some came out early, some not. And then as the results came out, they found out that the wife was HIV positive. The husband was clean. He had 0 STDs. The wife was HIV positive. So he told the wife, when we get back home, I want you to pack and I want you to leave my house. We are done. We are done. That's what he told her. So they got home and she did exactly that. And let me tell you guys something. This wife sacrificed her whole entire life for a border rider. The guy she was cheating on her husband with was a border rider. 13 years of marriage. She lost her family. She lost her husband, her children. She lost her reputation, her friendships, and relationships that they had built together as husband and wife. All that disappeared. Her self-worth, her respect, she lost it all for a 6-month affair with a border rider. If this man hadn't been traveling up and down for his job, he would probably have also gotten HIV. But his job saved him. His career saved him. He too would have been sick. Do you know, I listened to that story as this man was telling it to me. And the first words out of my mouth were, the devil is a liar. The devil is a liar. Then Ivan the cab guy is like, apana, wacha kuingisha devo kwa hii situation. Kila saa watu wanafanya madhambi ni devo, apana, wacha kumuingisha kwa hii situation. That woman was wrong. And I was like, I'm not saying she wasn't wrong. When it comes to temptation, the devil has his role to play, but so do we. And that is one thing people need to understand. When it comes to temptation, the devil has his role to play, and so do we. And let me tell you why. The devil tempts us based on the thoughts and desires that are in our minds and in our hearts. So whatever you're thinking, those evil thoughts, those evil dark desires that you have, that is what the devil will tempt you with. So temptation involves you, and it also involves the devil. When you look at this situation between the wife and the husband, the wife had probably already thought of cheating on her husband. She was tired of him traveling for work all the time, of him never being around. She probably got bored and started thinking of ways to occupy her time. So she started thinking how she could cheat on her husband, bring some spark into her life. She occupied her mind and her heart with lustful thoughts and desires. So what does the devil do? He's like, oh, so you're thinking of cheating on your husband. Let's make your fantasy a reality. And then he presents her with a temptation that she could not resist. And look at what it cost her. A 6-month affair. Look at what it cost her. 13 years, married 13 years. This man has provided for you and catered for you and your children. He loved you completely. And the only fault of his was he was constantly traveling. Instead of having a conversation with your husband about how you are growing tired and weary and etc., you decide to cheat on him with a border guy who ends up giving you HIV. Look at all she lost because of that one mistake. If you do not fill your mind with the word of God, the devil will fill it with fear. He will fill it with worry. He will fill it with stress. He will fill it with anxiety, and he will fill it with temptation. How do you go about resisting temptation? Number one is identify your weaknesses. Identify your weaknesses, because it is through your weaknesses that the devil will try to get you. Identify them, write them down. If your weakness is men, if your weakness is women, if your weakness is sex, pornography, if your weakness is lust, if your weakness is greed, if your weakness is laziness, if your weakness is lying, whatever your weakness is, identify it and pray over it. Pray over your weaknesses constantly. Number two, read the word of God. Fill your mind with the word of God. Number three, avoid people, places, or situations, or even things that cause you to sin. Avoid places, people, things, situations that cause you to sin. If your friends are causing you to sin, do away with them. If the TV is causing you to sin, do away with it. If having a TV tempts you to watch pornography, do away with the TV. If having a smartphone causes you to log onto pornography sites, do away with your smartphone. Whatever it is, whoever they are, whatever the situation, if it's causing you to sin, do away with it. Do away with it. I remember after my dad had paid off all my debts from the loan apps, I remember that moment of my life as though it were yesterday. I remember after all that scandal, after all that, oof, my goodness. I remember after all that, my sister told me, don't buy a smartphone. Don't get yourself a smartphone. Because I had loaned my smartphone. You know, these loans on items. It was one of the things that had been sold to pay off my debt. You know, the loan shark had already sold it off. So I couldn't get it back. And my sister told me, do not get a smartphone. Because she realized I needed time to heal. That's one. And I needed time to build strength to resist temptation. Had I had a smartphone during that period, I would probably have downloaded these apps again and continued to borrow money. I did not have a smartphone for 1.5 years. No social media, no access to any sort of internet, nothing. Anytime I left the house was to go visit my dad. When it was time for me to come back home, he would request for me a taxi from his phone. And I come back home. I had no access to nothing. I tell you, nothing. For 1.5 years, I stayed away. I got a smartphone in 2023, and this was to help me start my content creation business. And I have never, because of that 1.5 years, because of that resolve and strength that I built within me by praying to God constantly over my weaknesses, till today, I have never even thought of downloading a loan app. But if I had gotten a smartphone when I was still weak, I'm telling you, my story would be different today. My story would have been different. So identify your weaknesses and pray over them. Fill your mind and your heart with the word of God, or the devil will fill it with his evilness. And then avoid people, avoid places, avoid situations, and avoid things that cause you to sin. That is how you resist temptation. But the most important weapon is God. The most important weapon is God. The most important weapon is prayer. So I'm going to wind up by reading from Matthew chapter 5, verses 29 to 30. Matthew chapter 5, verses 29 to 30, and it says, "If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell." Now, when you read the description that is offered at the bottom of the Bible, most Bibles have descriptions at the bottom of the page. It says, when Jesus said to get rid of your hand or eye, he was speaking figuratively. He didn't mean literally to gouge out your eye, because even a blind person can last. But if that were the only choice, it would be better to go into heaven with one eye or hand than to go to hell with two. We sometimes tolerate sins in our lives that, left unchecked, could eventually destroy us. It is better to experience the pain of removal. And in brackets, they have explained removal by saying getting rid of a bad habit or something we treasure, for instance, than to allow the sin to bring judgment and condemnation. Examine your life for anything that causes you to sin and take every necessary action to remove it. As I mentioned earlier, identify your weaknesses. Identify the people, identify the places and situations and the things that cause you to sin, and do away with them. It could be your best friend. It could be somebody you love. Do away with them. Do away with them. If your smartphone or your smart TV are causing you to watch pornography, do away with them. If your friends are causing you to be promiscuous and lustful, do away with them. Do away with them. If they are causing you to lie and gossip, do away with them. Remove, get rid of. The process of removal isn't fun. It is painful sometimes. It hurts sometimes, but it is worth it. You would rather do away with those things, do away with those people, do away with those situations than spend an eternity in hell. God and prayer are the only weapons you have against temptation. God and prayer. Use them, and use them wisely. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of My Take. I hope you enjoyed it. Share your thoughts with me in the comment section, and I guess I'll catch you guys next week. Bye.